evening, everyone. I'm so glad you're here today. I want to share some thoughts on a few topics that many of us wrestle with: false humility, being overly concerned with how others see us, and allowing jealousy and comparison to hinder our ministry and personal growth. Now, these aren't just a few abstract ideas, they affect our hearts and our walk with God every single day. Let's first start talking about compliments. Have you ever offered someone a compliment that didn't quite feel genuine? Maybe you smiled and said, "Wow, you look great today." But deep down, you weren't really sincere. The Bible warns us about doing righteous acts merely to be seen by others. And we see that in Matthew chapter 6, verse 1, where it says, "Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven." This isn't a call to never encourage one another. It's a reminder that our words must come from our heart. You got to genuinely mean it, not just say it, just to please someone. When we offer compliments, let them be sincere. Let them be rooted in truth. Let you really mean what you're saying, not be kissing butt. And show love rather than empty platitudes meant to boast our image or secure approval from others. Now, let's also talk about that all too common obsession with what others think about us. Often, our fixation on external validation, it comes from low self-esteem. Let's just keep it real. We let the opinions of people dictate our worth, and we forget that our true value comes from God, our heavenly Father. We see that in 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 7. But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him." The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearances. They're gonna judge you. They're gonna say you too short, too tall, too thick, too whatever. But the Lord looks at your heart. In our modern world, where social media is constant comparison left and right. You can click on an image and judge someone instantly. It's so easy to get caught up in appearances. But instead, we got to ensure that we are anchored in the identity of God's truth, because He sees our hearts and He knows our worth far better than any human appraisal ever could. Now, another pitfall we got to guard against is jealousy and envy. The Pharisees of Jesus' day were blinded by comparison, self-righteousness, and their hearts became a breeding ground of resentment. Now, we read that in James chapter 3, verse 16, where it reminded us, "For where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there will be disorder in every vile practice." So don't let comparison lie dormant in your heart, because that's only providing the enemy with an opening door to hinder the work of God that He's doing in your life. When we fixate on what others have or how we measure up in comparison, we essentially block our own spiritual growth and the unique calling God has for our lives. We all have specific callings and they all look different. So you can't compare with someone else's. And speaking of calling, many of us sometimes deflect compliments or live timidly at our ministry because we're afraid to accept praise. We might say, "Oh, it was nothing," or brush off kind words and compliments because you don't feel worthy enough to receive it. But here's the truth: God has equipped you for your ministry. His word tells us in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5, "We demolish arguments and every pretense that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ." Now that means we're invited to surrender every thought, especially those of comparison, fear, or pride, to Jesus. So you have to allow God to renew your mind as He convicts you. And never believe that along your journey you're perfect or that you don't need His refining work. Because true humility comes from knowing that our strength, our worth, and our beauty come from God alone. So as we go forward, my light popped out. As we go forward, let's practice sincere encouragement. That's something I have to work on myself. God does not guard our hearts against jealousy, comparison. We have to learn to embrace compliments as a reminder of God's love, and let every conviction renew you, knowing that perfection isn't our goal, growth is. Let's live boldly for his kingdom, free the chains of false humility and the pressures of human approval. Just want to say thank you for joining me on this journey of reflection and renewal. And I hope this message encouraged someone today. And may God's truth shape every thought in your mind. You have a blessed evening.